Nammo Phat, good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The third mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I vow to cultivate responsibility and learn ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. I'm determined not to engage in sexual relations without love and a long-term commitment. To preserve the happiness of myself and others, I am determined to respect my commitments and the commitments of others. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Today we're continuing to read Ajahn Thanissaro's essay on the authenticity of the Pali Suttas from his book, The Karma of Questions. Two aspects of the Dhamma, however, make it a skill apart. The first is reflected in the fact that the word Dhamma means not only teaching, but also quality of the mind. Thus the above passage could also be translated, when you know for yourselves that these qualities are unskillful, these qualities are blameworthy. These qualities are criticized by the wise. These qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to harm and to suffering. Then you should abandon them. When you know for yourselves that these qualities are skillful, these qualities are blameless, these qualities are praised by the wise, these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to welfare and to happiness, then you should enter and remain in them. In fact, this is more likely the correct translation, as the discussion following this passage focuses on the results of acting on qualities of the mind, greed, aversion, and delusion in the unskillful set, and lack of greed, lack of aversion, and lack of delusion, the skillful one. This points to the fact that Dhamma practice is primarily a skill of the mind. The second aspect that sets the Dhamma apart as a skill is its goal, nothing less than the total ending of suffering. While this second aspect of the Dhamma makes it an attractive skill to master, the first aspect makes it hard to determine who has mastered the skill and is thus qualified to speak about it with authority. After all, we can't look into the minds of others and see what qualities are there and what the internal results of the practice are. At best, we can detect hints of these things in their actions, but nothing more. Thus, if we look to others for the last word on the Dhamma, we will always be in a position of uncertainty. The only way to overcome uncertainty is to practice the Dhamma to see if it brings about an end to suffering within our own minds. Traditionally, this text states that uncertainty about the Dhamma ends only with the attainment of stream entry, the first of the 4 levels of awakening. Even though a person who has reached this level of awakening isn't totally immersed in the ending of suffering, he or she has seen enough of the end of suffering to know, without a doubt, that that's where the practice of the Dhamma leads. So it's not surprising that the 4 factors the suttas identify as bringing about stream entry are also the 4 methods they recommend for ascertaining whether they themselves are a truly authoritative and authentic guide to the end of suffering. These factors, listed in SN 55.5, are association with people of integrity, listening to the true Dhamma, appropriate attention, and practice in accordance with the Dhamma. Passages from the suttas dealing with each of these factors helps show how the two sources of skill, the counsel of the wise and the lessons learned by observing the results of your own actions, can be properly balanced and integrated so as to ascertain what the true Dhamma is. And because listening to the true Dhamma now includes reading the true Dhamma, a knowledge of these factors and their interrelationships gives guidance in how to read the suttas. In particular, these factors show how the suttas themselves say they should be read, and what other actions provide a skillful context for getting the most benefit from reading them. As you explore the explanations of these factors, you find that their presentation as a short list is deceptively simple, inasmuch as each factor contains elements of the other factors as well. For instance, associating with people of integrity is of great help in practicing the Dhamma, but for a person to recognize people of genuine integrity requires that he or she have some prior experience in practicing the Dhamma. Thus, although the form of the list suggests a simple, linear progression, the individual factors of the list are interrelated in complex ways. What this means in practice is that the process of ascertaining the Dhamma is a complex one, requiring sensitivity and discernment in balancing and integrating the factors in an appropriate way. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me this morning.